G'day guys. So today I got a guest with me here. His name is Counsel, and here you have two millionaires. One of them became a millionaire very recently. The other one's been a millionaire for several decades. One of the best business consultants on LinkedIn. We have here today Counsel. Hi, thanks for being here today.
It's a pleasure there.
So Paul, coming from the perspective of somebody who's not gone through the typical system, I didn't go through the corporate route, didn't do the 9-to-5 grind, didn't do the university route and things like that. I have my own set of experiences on what it means to get through life, and in terms of the money side of life, the relationship side of life, and the lifestyle of things. However, I understand that a lot of people that are watching might find themselves having lived a very typical lifestyle or life cycle rather. And it's one of the core messages that I want people to understand that there's a different path out there available to them, a different lifestyle that's not stuck in 9-to-5 grind, that, they don't have to sort of meet social expectations, get that mortgage, get married at a certain age, have kids, or any of that kind of stuff. There's actually a lot of flexibility in this world, but how would one sort of transition to becoming aware of it and then actually being brave enough or having the courage to actually want to see new results for themselves? Not a particularly well phrased question.
Oh, no. It's the question's brilliant. But the question has got so many
aspects to it.
So many leads to it, isn't there? One of the words you used is the word how. How would I do something different? And so that's really an interesting question in itself. Why would it be important to do something different? Might lead us into a different set of explorations. And if you think about if the premise that you're set up is true, that a lot of people are living a particular, let's call it the classic lifestyle, which is
the rat
basically,
race,
you can have all sorts of names for it. But it's basically, it follows the idea that you should work hard, that you should work long hours, that you should get some money, you should spend all your money. And some mythical place in the future, you'll be happy if you will do all the right things now. And so a lot of people through whatever set of circumstances, through whatever set of events, live that particular lifestyle. So we might call that, in Australia, we might call it the working class, we might call it the middle class, we might call it a whole bunch of things. If you are not aware that that's not the only way that you can live, if you are aware that there are other ways to express yourself in this thing called a life, if you are aware that there's a whole set of possibilities in front of you, then you can actually start choosing, or you can even be aware that you may not be able to choose yet because you don't have enough information. But it all goes back for me to the beginning. If you are living a lifestyle that you're not satisfied with, why are you living that lifestyle? What made you arrive at this point? What were the sets of things that were set up for you to either consciously or unconsciously go along that pathway?
Well, that's what I was going to say. A lot of my friends, so I'm heading into my 30s soon. So a lot of my friends that I grew up with in high school, they're in their 30s now. And they feel sick of their current, they feel bored as shit. And they don't feel like they achieved anything. They don't feel like life has much meaning in some extreme cases. And then when you get down to the root of it, why are you in that situation in the first place? I don't know, I just followed, I just did.
Well, that's it, that's it. When you start to explore some of those, well, hang on, you chose it, didn't you? I mean, somebody came along and said you can use A, B, C, D, E, F or G. Why did you choose A?
I don't know.
I don't know. Okay.
My mum told me to.
Yeah, exactly. Or the school teacher, or the the respected person in their lives, or whatever. And that gives us the first clue, is that most people follow unconscious pathway. And if we sort of scratch around at that pathway has a whole existing set of main stories that you are told. And you are told those stories from, the birth. We're told through our elders, we're told through our communities, we're told through whatever with that. And we unconsciously imbibe them. We're told stories through school, we're told stories through high school, through university. They're all, basically got their version of the stories. And so, the story of if you work out what the story of the main pathway is, work hard, be good, get married, have kids, become a consumer, and somehow you'll be happy. And yet your experience and your friend's experience of them is different. So the first thing that you've got to understand is that you're following either somebody else's bunch of stories, or you've got your own stories going on in your head that you are following because you believe it's important to follow that mainstream narrative, if you like. Or Cliff High, a person who is very much about questioning the status quo. He calls it a narradigm rather than a narrative. In other words, a narrative and a paradigm, so a narradigm. So it's a great sort of expanse of stories. Basically, if you don't actually understand that you're following stories that you didn't have any creation input into, and that story, those stories, or that narradigm, if you like to use Cliff's language, you're not going to create a new set of stories for yourself. And here you are, you're saying, I didn't go through the traditional pathways. I actually went out there and experienced life in a dozen different ways than other people would experience it. So you're experiencing maybe a different set of narratives that you have personal experience in, rather than I'm following a series of narratives or stories that the controllers of we, the populace, want to foster. Because if you ask the question, who benefits? You might ask the question, follow the money.
Yes.
You might ask a dozen different questions like that. And so we get to the stage where the few have and the many don't. And it doesn't really matter what the political system is. It doesn't really matter what the country is. It's the same process.
It doesn't matter whether it's in China,
So
America.
if we go back and listen to the Pied Piper, we all followed the Pied Piper at some stage until we worked out that the Pied Piper wasn't the ideal narrative or narradigm to follow. So once you become aware of that, you can say, well, okay, I need to start inquiring of people who are living the lifestyle they would prefer to live rather than the lifestyle that they are living. And so it might be a money-related lifestyle, it may be a relationship-related lifestyle, it might be a health-related lifestyle, it might be a happiness-related lifestyle, a wellness-related lifestyle. So, follow the people that have got the results that you want, because they'll be able to share a different set of stories, a different set of experiences, a different set of ideas, a different set of values, a different set of behaviours.
Yep. So, for example, I run my own online communities in Indonesia and starting to in the English market as well. One of the things that I repeatedly say to them is always, if you want to be an athlete and you want the body of an athlete, the mentality of an athlete, the performance of an athlete, then you need to be around athletes that have the specs and the results you want. If you're fat right now and you want to get fit, you're not going to do that by hanging around other fat people, right? And same thing with money-related results. If you want to be successful in business, you got to hang around the people that are successful and have the results you want as well. So that's tying into what you just said. I say that, and I get a lot of people nodding their heads and saying, yeah, that sounds good. But when it comes to actually executing it, how do you find these people? How do you not just find them, but how do you even get them to want to, spend time with you and, work with you or on you?
What you're really talking about is, it's an observation that has come down from, since the birth of time, really, or since the birth of consciousness and language, if you want to put it more accurately. And what you're saying, it's the environment. So if you're in the environment of the majority, you're only ever going to get the results of the majority. If you're in the environment of the minority, you're going to learn things differently. So whatever environment, whatever outcome that you want, and if it's an athlete, then you've got to immerse yourself in that environment. Yep. Okay. So where do you get them? In fact, they're the easiest. Let's say a wealth environment, and it doesn't matter. There's a truth in, it doesn't matter what the environment is. I'm just going to speak on the wealth environment. But it would be true of the wellness environment. It would be true of the relationship environment. It would be true of the athletic environment. It would be true of basically any craft environment. Getting access to the environment is one of the easiest things to do for any person that actually truly wants to do it, and not just talk about doing, but don't follow the behaviour. Yeah. Because what you said, part of what you said is they get it intellectually, but there's no follow through.
Yes.
Which means that they haven't actually got it emotionally. Their emotional stories are still with the stories that prevent them. I don't have time and I don't have money and I'm not that good looking or whatever. There's a bunch of stories that are just keeping them, fixed in the mainstream narrative. So you're kind of sort of mentioning that it might be hard to access.
Well, I'm
Multi-people.
more so from the
But
perspective.
in actual fact, it's easy because if you think about it, most successful people write books.
True.
You can go
That's
to,
true.
generally speaking, I mean, I'm in Australia, we have public libraries. There are libraries generally anywhere in developed nations. I don't quite know what it's like in undeveloped nations or developing nations. But we also have this thing called the internet. Also have this thing called YouTube. We also have this thing called...
There's a whole lot of resources.
Resources are free of charge. You can actually get people's books, which is where I started. Because I got to the age of 40 and I was absolutely in this mainstream paradigm, dead flat broke. I didn't have any money,
Yep.
which is why I was dead flat broke. People don't seem to put those two thoughts together because, oh, okay, you were lucky. No, I wasn't lucky. I just read books.
Yeah.
I couldn't afford to buy the books. They're in the public libraries. Oh, but I don't have time. So we've got these blocking narratives that are coming up, and it's the yeah, but. And if you're not even aware of the resistance in your own language, generally you're never going to get past those resistances, the yeah, buts in your own narrative. So you can get access to them, which is what I did. I started reading about, books written by wealthy people, because who else is going to tell me apart from a wealthy person? Like my dad can't tell me. He's a great dad, but he's not wealthy. He can't tell me how to make money. My mum can't tell me. My brothers and sisters, they can't tell me. My school friends, they can't tell me because we lived in a poor neighbourhood. Now, this is, prior to the internet, I just read as many books by wealthy people. And when I started reading, and I wasn't a book reader by any stretch of the imagination. I think I read maybe a handful of books before I was 40. Well, I changed that after 40. I read everybody's books. And I got really confused because it seemed like all these wealthy people were saying you should do this and you should do this and you should do this and you should do that. And somebody's talking about the share market and somebody's talking about real estate and somebody's talking about businesses and somebody's talking about this and somebody's talking about that. I'm drowning.
Everybody's got their own.
Everybody's got their own formula, their own recipe. And I was so confused, I wanted to scream at the books. I wanted to ask the author, what do you mean by this? And then I figured out, hang on, by the time you read enough books, they're all pretty much saying the same thing.
Yes.
But you've got to get over that hurdle of reading enough books because now they all say the same thing. And I developed that down to a series of 5 steps.
What are those 5 steps?
More information relative to the outcome that you want. Step number 1.
Okay.
More information relative to the outcome. So if you want wealth as an outcome, if you want health as an outcome, if you want relationships as an outcome, if you want to be a better parent as an outcome, more information relative to that outcome. Step number 2, apply the information you've just read. That's a behavioural thing. First step's an intellectual thing.
Okay.
If you don't do the behavioural thing, it doesn't matter how much intellectual stuff you're getting on board. You can listen to webinar after webinar after webinar.
It's
read
like
book
those
after
webinar
book after
junkies.
book, listen to as many YouTubes as you can possibly fit into a day. If you don't do step 2, which is apply it, that's a behaviour thing. As soon as you do steps 1 and 2, you automatically get step 3, which is a result.
And the result could be what you were hoping to get or not what you're hoping to get, completely off mark.
Doesn't matter, but congratulations, you got a result.
Yes.
So no result in my book, in my model of the world, is failure.
Yes.
I don't know how you can actually call it failure because you have to do something in order to get it. That's a positive in my book. Okay? Now, of course, the first time I'm going to try and hit a tennis ball over the net may not actually go over the net. I'm going to hit the net. That's a result. Congratulations. I did 2 things. I learned how to pick up a racket and a ball, and I followed through with some behaviour, and I got a result. Step number 4. If you use the mainstream narrative or stories to examine that result, you might say that it's failure because it's not good enough. It wasn't what you wanted.
You ran an ad and it didn't work.
Now, basically you've fallen back into all of the criteria or all the benchmarking or all of the feedback systems of something that is never ever going to get you to advance. So step number 4, which is the most critical step, is that you've got to invent for yourself a new series of feedback criteria. You've got to give new meanings to the information you picked up and the actions that you took and the result that you've got. And those new meanings have to be able to point the way forward. No good if they point the way backwards. So if they point the way forward, then step number 5 says, well, Now you've got to make an adjustment somewhere. You can make an adjustment to the information you're getting. You can make an adjustment to the way that you put it into action. So if you do steps 1 through to 5, then if you do that over and over and over again, you're going to get a better result each time you go through those 5 stages. And over and over and over again, you get more skilled at it, you get better at it, your results improve, and that's how you, basically that's what all the book said.
I absolutely.
They didn't say it in that many words, but basically once you've read enough of them, they're all saying the same thing.
Yes, it's just change the gimmick, change the vehicle, change the method.
But what the important thing is change the feedback criteria you're using.
And it comes back down to time, concentration, commitment, to be able to actually go through.
You're going to be alive that amount of time anyway.
Yes.
So it doesn't really come down to time. It really comes back down to how you utilise that time. And if you're busy giving priority to something else for that same amount of time, then you can't achieve those things. It doesn't matter what you do whilst you're alive, it all takes time. And time is not something that we can buy. Time is not something that we can...
Back, refund.
we can manage, quote time management. Yeah, exactly. I didn't like the amount of time, can I have it back? No. Time is, we don't know how much we've got. We know it's finite, but we don't know.
Although some people are trying to change that.
Well, good luck to Elon. So it's basically what priorities you give your time to. And if you're giving your priorities to less than, then you're going to get the results of less than. Now, I know that it might be difficult. And there are some, strategies that we can talk about around that. But, there are so many people giving time to, let's say, social media and no time to a serious book.
That's what I was about to comment on before, as I was listening to what you were saying. Right? First of all, I completely agree with everything you're saying. It actually has massive application that I've personally seen myself when I was running my ads. When I run ads and I spend $10 on an ad and it doesn't work out, I don't get any sales. For me, it's not a failure at all. It's just, okay, so I ran an ad and it didn't convert to a sale. But from that ad, I can see how many people looked at the ad, how many people clicked on the ad, how many people went to the page that the ad goes to, how many people signed up and put in their form, and all that data will point to me where the problem is that I need to fix and what I need to improve on.
So when you said your ad didn't work, what you're really saying now, it did work.
It did work.
Because
it pointed me in the direction.
You some feedback.
Yes.
And what's the feedback? I need to improve either this or this.
Exactly.
Because you can only improve 1 or 2.
And after fixing 3, 4, 5 things, it's pretty much a guarantee to profit.
So
right.
They all work.
Yes.
It's a matter of the message we receive.
Yes.
And if you're receiving messages through your old feedback mechanism or criteria, difficult to go over here and have this enhanced lifestyle.
Yes.
So if that criteria is important to you, then stick with your old lifestyle. Because that's the only thing it can point to. It can't point to the future. It can only point to
what you already have
what you're already
experienced.
having.
Yes. We do live in a basically a TikTok generation though, where everybody's on their beds, on their sofas, either watching Netflix 24/7 or flipping through TikTok. Attention spans like 3 seconds long, 10 seconds, and I as a marketer, I can see that in all the videos we produce. The first 10 seconds has to be a runner or a hit, otherwise you're not going to gain traction, right? Now, in an era like that, and
well, I mean, what you're just saying, you're going to say, okay, that's a conditioned set of behaviours, isn't it? It's been socialised, it's been conditioned into a certain populace.
yes.
Okay.
How
Then you
do
say,
change?
who benefits?
Well, who does benefit actually?
The few benefit,
Yes.
the majority don't.
Yes.
So it gets back to the same observation. If you're following something where few benefit from, and you might have some influences that somehow benefit out of this medium, okay, so if you want to become like them, then you get into the environment of influences. But if you're not being advantaged by it, you are actually being disadvantaged. There's no status quo, there's no neutral ground here. If you're consuming time and not being benefited in some way, shape or time, then somebody's benefiting from you. And so now you've got to ask yourself, do you want to be the, which side of the equation do you want to be on? The one that's just consuming and giving your time for no benefit, or the one that's actually using time in order to receive a large benefit.
So it's kind of like saying this little tool here in my hand, it's a fantastic consumer of time, but it's also potentially a fantastic producer of content and things that...
I don't think... One of the really difficult things to understand is the level of the quality of lifestyle that most people have in a Western world. It's far superior than any king or queen had in any country.
300, 400, 500
Not
years
that
ago.
far. You don't even have to go back 100 years ago.
Really? Okay.
Extremely. And we've got these things, we've got computers in our hands that can take us to the moon and back. They've got the computer power. There's more actual computer power in there than they used to.
11.
Yeah. It's just mind-boggling.
Yes.
In a heartbeat, I can be listening to a podcast from any successful person that you want to tap into and just consume them. You know, you consume them while you're driving, consume them. I actually listen to podcasts all night. I have my earplugs in, I fall asleep. As soon as I wake up, the podcasts are back on. I might only listen to 5 minutes of them before I fall back to sleep. Well, that's 5 minutes. I might, the podcast might pose a question. I might wonder for about 5 minutes before I fall back to sleep. But I'm not, every waking moment I'm into somebody else's success series of stories or environment.
And that's again tapping into the environment of somebody who has something you want or the result
Free
you
of
want.
charge.
Yes.
It's not difficult.
I think sometimes, like, we're talking about habits here now, right?
Well, rather than habits, because, wealth is a habit, just like anything else is. Yes. We're talking about, effective behaviours that allow you to achieve whatever it is that you want to achieve, or effective behaviours that deny you access. They're all behaviours. They're not right or wrong behaviours. They're not good or bad.
They just get you the result that the behaviour is designed to get
you. Exactly.
Right.
So if you follow the mainstream series of behaviours, you can't expect anything different from them. You can't expect to win a lotto ticket if you don't win lotto if you don't buy a ticket. And that just because you bought a ticket doesn't guarantee that you're going to win it.
Yes.
So, but you actually have to buy the ticket to at least now open up a set of possibilities. So you've got to immerse yourself in at least the stories of extremely successful people in whatever area of lifestyle is important to you. Because it's not about what we think about that causes the challenge for most people. It's how we think about what we think about that causes the challenge. So in other words, it doesn't matter where you are in strata society, you still got to think about safety. It doesn't matter where you are in strata society, you still got to think about food, you still got to think about shelter, you still got to think about money, you still got to think about a whole series of, relationship things, all those sorts of things. So it's not what we think about,
it's
how we think about what we think about. And so wealthy people think about money in a completely different way than people who are not wealthy. Well, it's still about the same thing, this thing called money or this thing called wealth or this thing called behaviour. They think about them differently.
How to change it though? Because it's one of the challenges that I personally face with, I've got friends, again, childhood friends, that are at the stage where they want to change their life, right? They want different results. And they tell me that, but it's not consistent with their actions and their behavior and what I call habits.
So you're buying their story?
No, I'm not.
Well, are they buying their story?
Exactly.
Somebody's buying their story.
It's like, I want to quit my job. I have a deadline by this date, blah, 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 blah,
Fine,
blah.
stop.
Right?
Tomorrow. Yeah. Go and quit. Go and hand in. Oh, no, I can't do that. Hang on. You just said I want to quit my job. No, you're going to carry out the behaviours the way that you've always been carrying them out. You just asked me, how do you do something? Well, by stop doing it. Surely that's the easiest and the most obvious thing. So what's stopping them from doing the how?
Well, it's the what comes next.
Well, I just, answered a question by saying you just read books. What greater how do you need? Does that make sense? Then all the excuses come up, don't they?
Yes.
It's like you've seen a movie and now all the credits and all the things are just rolling and rolling and rolling and rolling and rolling. And that just comes up and people say you can see it in their eyes. You can see it in their minds. You can see it. I can tell them how a dozen different ways. I can tell them how a dozen different times. It doesn't change the way they think about but what. Yeah. I can tell them how, but it's followed by a whole bunch of whys that I learned to perceive. It's followed by a whole bunch of experiences behind that how. I can't give them the experience unless they give me their time. So it's not a how. It's never a how. Because if it was a how, they just get in a bookshop and buy a how-to book.
Digital marketing for idiots.
Exactly. What is it? Trading for dummies.
Yeah.
All of those things. Oh, but I don't have the time to... What if you don't have the time to read a book? You certainly don't have the time to actually improve your wellness, your wealth status. So it's rather a why. And it basically gets down to motivation.
Yes.
Motivation is never a how, it's a why. Okay, so then you say, well, basically, there are two forms of motivation. And if you read some Freud and if you read some, people who are much learned than I are, they might say, you've either got a motivation to move towards something or you've primarily got a motivation to move away from something.
So it's fear and greed.
We could language it like that. We could pain and happiness. We could label it a whole bunch of different ways, but basically those innate drives are to move towards the things that make us happy and to move away from the things that give us pain. Most people will predominantly be pain motivated. So in order to get them to change, in my mind, they have to reach their pain threshold. They have to reach their point of enough's enough. Because if they don't, then they'll just continue to suffer, whatever it is that they're suffering. They'll continue to struggle with whatever they're struggling with. They'll continue to dislike whatever they're experiencing. But it's not dislike it enough to then go and change it. So it's never a how. How or a dime a dozen. It's what's going to actually get you motivated enough to take the actions. Step one, more information relative to the outcome. Step two, do something. Behaviour.
Yeah.
It's those 5 steps. So if you're primarily pain motivated, you're going to be using your money to remove yourself from pain. In other words, you're going to be spending all of the money that you generally have to spend money on for momentarily bits of pleasure.
Yes. I didn't tell you the story about my friend yet and how I called out his bullshit, right? They said, okay, so what comes next after you quit your job? What's your plan after that? And he goes, oh, well, I was thinking I want to travel the world, Europe, et cetera, whatever, right? And listed countries. And what are you going to do about money? Because the last thing you want to do is you've already saved up X amount of dollars after 10 years of working the corporate career ladder, right? The last thing you want to do is quit, spend it on a fancy holiday, come back and just be forced to go back into the same thing you were going through in the first place, right? So what's your sustainable plan out of it? And he goes, oh, well, I was thinking I was gonna, either one of two things. Either I was gonna sort of travel the world and see if I can get work in these like adventure camps that I enjoy running and maybe be an assistant there. And yeah, I'm not gonna get rich, but at least I'll be able to pay for myself. The other thing is also I was considering on going basically back to school and getting a degree in outdoor adventuring, et cetera, and seeing if I can turn that into a business, et cetera, et cetera. I was like, okay, so how are you going to actually sustain the amount that you've already saved up? How are you actually going to keep sustaining that and have it keep growing while you're enjoying the lifestyle you want? And he goes, oh, well, I'll see how it goes. I go, okay, well, how about this then? You write down on a piece of paper, right, exactly what your goals are and the steps at which you're going to achieve them, right? So, okay, you want $1 million if that's what you want? Okay, write down. How are you going to get that $1 million? And write it out for me as detailed as you can. And whatever your goals are, it can be money, can be anything else. And so he did his homework. He came back to me. He showed me 2 pieces of paper. And one piece of paper, he had on there, I want to make X amount of dollars. I'm not going to disclose how much it was. I want to have this much of assets. I want to have a home. I want to have a family. And that's all he wrote on that one. On the other piece of paper was, I'm going to go to this country by this date. And I'm going to go to these camps. And he mentioned the names of the camps. He mentioned the names of the activities. He's going to go hiking up a mountain. And I simply said to him, okay, take a look at these 2 pieces of paper. Which one is more detailed than the other? The more detailed it is, the more likely it is it's going to become a reality because you've given form to something that was abstract. The one that's just, oh, I want this without any real, how am I going to get there, is unlikely to happen. You know, and from that experience, it revealed to him, oh yeah, shit, you're right. You know, you made a good point, right? that the thing that I say I want, I didn't actually list out exactly how I was going to get there. The one that I did list out exactly what I wanted to do is what he actually wanted to do.
And you know, we can get back to which direction is his motivation taking him.
He's sick of the 10 years of punishment and trying to, heal that.
So if we just go back to that, most people are driven by pain as their primary motivator. If you're motivated by pain primarily, you're going to try and avoid it. So the best way to use money is to buy little bits of pleasure.
Yes.
And those pleasures are, almost instantaneous, but there's no long lasting. They don't actually fill a void. They don't fill the emptiness that you feel. So I have a moment's pleasure, I have a week's worth of pleasure, I have a month's worth of pleasure. I buy a new car and eventually it gets, it's not so new anymore. Oh, now it's just a debt. Oh, okay, got to keep paying. And then there are, things that are much more pleasure orientated. And so you can basically see what a person's, or hear what a person's primary motivator is through their language patterns. And so a person that is primarily motivated by pain, they will use a lot of resistance language patterns. That's the reasons why they can't do things. A person who is primarily motivated by pleasure, there won't be any resistance patterns in their language. If you think about children are naturally curious about anything, If they want to learn how to fish and you start teaching them how to fish and, how to tie a
knot on a hook.
A knot on a hook, Yep. They're going to be all eyes. Can I have a go? Can I have a go? Can I have a go? So their curiosity is always leading them forwards to new things. But by the time we're adults, there's lots of resistances just built in by the system or the main paradigm, if you like. Because if you're working with somebody that you sense a resistance in, you understand that their primary motivator is pain, and they're just using pleasure. Like, if you lost $10,000 in a trade on the stock market, you might feel really, really, really lousy. But if you spent that same $10,000 on a 14-day cruise around the Caribbean, you're not going to feel the same way about losing $10,000.
You still lost $10,000.
Somehow this was justifiable and somehow this wasn't justifiable.
Yes.
And yet the result is the same. You had $10,000 and now you don't have $10,000. And all you got is a couple of snappy shots and a happy series of memories until they fade.
Yes.
The result's the same. But if I lost in the stock market, I can then, what did I do? I can get better and better and better and better because I'm just going to get the money to then do it again and have another go and have another go. And, I'm going to spend another $10,000 on cruises or whatever. So if you're working with somebody who's primarily pleasure motivated, they're really easy to work with because they'll just want all the information. Just tell me how, tell me to read a book, I'll read it and I'll come back in 3 weeks later and I'll tell you what's all about the book. Can we have a discussion about the book, please? Because I just read this and I read this. I don't know what they mean by that. What do you think that they mean by that? All these questions are just coming and coming and coming. So if you're working with somebody that's pain motivated, fine, ratchet the pain up until it overwhelms them. Then they'll do something, but not until. And people think, look, it's great to have a high pain threshold. No. That's the hero story, isn't it? Oh, you're a hero if you can tolerate pain. I can't tolerate pain.
Tolerate 9 to 5 for 20 years, go for it.
Yeah, exactly. So it's really, okay, what's the motivator? So then what's the why? What's going to cause you to want to get past you? Because you're your own block. It's not anything out there and not anything, it's what's up here. If I'm telling you go read a book, why don't you just go read a book? I don't have enough time. Well, hang on, that's up here. I've got the same 24 hours as you've got the 20. Billionaires, gazillionaires, trillionaires all have the same amount of time. We can't buy time, we can't shorten time, we can't manage time, we can't do anything. The only thing that happens is time is you consume it. You're either going to consume it effectively or consume it ineffectively, like the mainstream paradigm encourages you to, which is why people are so screen orientated these days. But it's not effective use of time.
The thing is, we're talking about this in such detail. I can tell that viewers at home will have a tough time actually digesting all of this because the way I see it anyway is that so many people these days are just hooked on the quick fix thing, Like, For example, at least in my social communities, that they're talking about, like, the most common question is, what can I do to make money now? What can I do to, what's going to make me money in 2024? It's always what is that quick fix?
I mean, the honest answer to the question is nothing. You can't do anything to make money now. Because you're actually asking the question. So the only way you know how to get money is through the exchange of your time and labour. Okay? Now, you've got to be able to move away from that question and move away from that essential paradigm. Because if you want the quick fix, my question to you is, you name one thing that a quick fix ever solved.
Nothing.
You name one major area of life that a quick fix allowed you to do.
I mean,
so if you can't name anything that a quick fix benefits except for your emotional pleasure, a quick fix is not going to get you wealthy. A quick fix is not going to get you healthy. A quick fix is not going to get you the happiest relationship on planet Earth. A quick fix is only going to buy you a moment of pleasure. You want a quick fix? Go and eat ice cream. Yeah. Gives you a moment of pleasure until it melts. So if you understand that looking for the quick fix is actually a pathway that is not productive and it's not useful for the long-term outcome that you're looking for. The shortest way to get what you want is to do it correctly in the first place. There's no shortcuts.
I've actually...
Because if you think about what's the shortcut, if you've never done it before, you can't do it quicker.
True.
So let that sink in. If you've never done it before, how is it possible to do it quicker? Is there a fast way to do this? Have you done it before? Then the answer is no. So let's get you to do it once, shall we?
Yes, instead of...
And if you listen to me and you do these steps, you will get there. Because these steps are proven and they're tried and they're tested, and everybody that I've shared them with and everybody that I've supported have got the outcomes. And so there's a proven method, there's a proven system, there's a proven series of steps, and just do them. Do them once, then we can come back, and if you want to do them again, perhaps we can change a few things so that you can do it faster this time.
5 steps, isn't it?
5 steps.
Thank you for that.
It's
excellent.
A pleasure.
Yes. So I think we've been going through quite a few topics this time, so we might cap it off this time, but I would love to have you on as another...
It would be my pleasure.
...episode or, session, and we'll see you next time we see you.
Good.
Thank you, Paul.